Good morning, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. February 14th. It's a Friday. TGIF. There are all kinds of special lunches and dinners, and the restaurants are all spruced up with red roses in small, fruity containers set on each table with tablecloth. Yeah, it's a special day if you got an extra $100 for a luncheon, $160 if you're going to have a nice dinner somewhere. My suggestion is, particularly if you don't have reservations, because if you don't have reservations, forget it. It's too late. Go out tomorrow. Pretend that tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Let's pretend. Sure, beat the February rush. Have a nice dinner on February 15th when the crew is, your service crew that is recovering from yesterday, so to speak. And, you'll have a quieter, more private social engagement if you do it on the 15th instead of the 14th, or even Sunday. What's wrong with Sunday lunch, brunch? If there is such a place. I think, trying to think. Yeah, there's nice places all over. You just have to call around and find out which ones are open. We had a dinner engagement at Mia Rosebud. It's new, about 10 months ago. The owners have been in the restaurant business for a long time. They have, I think this is number 11. So that's a good thing, because that means they ship down, like 10 experienced people they pulled from the other restaurants. If they just pull one from each of the other 10 in vital areas, like, back of the house management, front of the house management, pick up bring a sous chef in from another restaurant, and, hire, a local chef if you can, or vice versa. They can bring in a chef from one of their other restaurants and hire locally a sous chef. That's the number 2 in the chef business. And the sous chef is a very important person, because he's the guy at 6:30 in the morning that opens up the back of the house, so to speak. And they go through the vegetables that have been ordered for that day. Every day they get deliveries, except for I think Sunday, with the vegetables. So, picking out the vegetables and throwing out the culls. You cull out the bad ones. Look for bugs crawling around in your vegetables. You can see them. They're nice and crispy and fresh and good. And there shouldn't be bugs if they're rinsed off at the distributor level. They take in the meats, the fishes, so the sous chef is very important, because he's bringing in all the raw food that comes in. Your fillets, your, ribeye steaks, all kinds of different fishes that are caught in the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of America. Yes. Anyway, so the sous chef's an important guy. It may be, between the chef and the sous chef and the front of the house manager, they'll sculpt out, they'll talk about, how many, they call it how many covers they're going to have today. That's what they call it. Each person is called a cover. They have their own little language. Okay. Okay, Mo, how many covers do you think we're going to have today? What's the reservation list look like? And they do. They look at the reservation. Oh, yeah, you got 213 reservations. All right. So then they plan accordingly. They don't know who's going to order what, but they know how to distribute. So they got 200 covers. That means 200 people coming in that have lunch reservations. And if your restaurant can hold 250, you're going to get 30 or 40 walk-ins. So you're going to be full. And if the front of the house manager knows what he's doing, they don't all come in at 12:10 p.m. They have to be spread out. Because if everyone comes in at the same time, a lot of people are going to become unhappy because they're not going to get fed, at 12:30. That ain't going to happen. You got to split that crowd up into at least thirds. That means $80, 80 covers, 80 people every half hour. So you have 80 people seated at 12:15. You seat another 80 people at, let's say, 12:45, and another 80 people seated at 1:15. If you do that, then you're not going to overload the kitchen. There's only so much horsepower that you have in the kitchen. There's only so many burners. There are only so many saute pans. You can only do so much. And if you whack out the kitchen, if you over-rev the kitchen, you're going to have some be-backs on the food that is served because it won't be cooked right. It'll be overdone. It'll be underdone. Oh, God. I ordered some, they call it, black grouper. Black grouper, they call it on the menu. $39 for a piece of black grouper. It's probably a 6-ounce piece of fish. Last time I had that, it was absolutely terrible. It was a nasty piece, a nasty cut of fish. It looked like it was not cut properly. How you fillet grouper. It should be nice, light, and flaky. It's a nice, light, flaky, white piece of fish. You can peel off each little flake. That's the size of a quarter, let's say. And it was all stuck together. You forget flake. I should have sent it back. I didn't send it back. Shame on you. How do you want to cook, sir? Medium. That means, in the world of fish, that means light and flaky, where you can peel with your fork. You can lay down the layers and just take that morsel. And it's beautiful. Well, mine was like stuck. You could stick your fork in it. Oh, it was terrible. I couldn't eat it. Yeah. So, so when the waitress, they're cleaning, taking the plates from you, she said, how'd you like it? Yeah. I said, you me, I couldn't even eat it. I said, you should show that to the chef. It was the worst lunch I've ever had, I'm sorry to say. It was improperly cooked, and it was a terrible cut of fish. It was like a piece at the bottom of the barrel they stuck with me with. I lucked out. So I should have sent it back. It should be taken off my check. I didn't eat it. No one can eat it. You can have your guys in the back use a hacksaw to get through it. Some white, light, flaky fish, that is. That's what it says on the menu. And it was like it was cooked yesterday, and then they cooked it again today. Yeah, it's just a disaster. It's really disgusting when you're sitting there with other people. I didn't want to make a fuss. It's like the last 4 times I've been in that restaurant, I got stuck. Yeah, I was the one that got the bad meal. There's always somebody, right? And in fish, it's got to be, oh my God, a precise temperature and time. If it's on if you're broiling it, or if you're sautéing it, you've got, a 10-second window, plus or minus, to get that sucker off the heat, or it turns into a hockey puck. It shrinks up, the moisture expels, and then you don't have light and flaky fish. I hate to, hammer you all out there with, what a disaster lunch can be. Of course, that was dinner. So, anyway, but we were having dinner with one of our friends that happens to be a former FBI agent. Oh my God. Yes. It's a lady friend. And she's a former FBI person. And also former, I believe, Pennsylvania, officer. Anyway. So she said her friends at the FBI are ecstatic, enthusiastic for Kash Patel to show up to be head of the FBI. You hear the media. Oh my God, the agents, they're going to resign in numbers. Yeah, the ones that are going to resign in numbers are everybody that are on floor number 7 of the J. Edgar Hoover building. The FBI headquarters, there will be probably this weekend, they'll be packing their boxes and getting ready to get the hatchet. They'll be gone because they're the ones that have weaponized America's most prestigious law enforcement body, against Trump and Trump friends, which is, can you imagine? So if you're an associate of Trump, you were as targeted as Trump was. And with this January 6th business, which Trump had not a goddamn thing to do about it. Nothing to do with about it. It's like nuts. But, oh, yeah, man. Yeah. He had a rally. There was 100,000 people listening to him at a rally. He's an enthusiastic character. He's a celebrity. People go just because of his celebrity, whether he's president or, whether he's dog catcher. Trump, after 14 years of having the #1 show called The Apprentice, he has become a celebrity. Plus he's built a bunch of big buildings in Manhattan. which is like a magic act to be able to do that, and live through it because of the politics around building anything in Manhattan. You have city commissioners, and you got this person and that person. You've got to, you have to contribute to a lot of political organizations in order to get permitted, to build a building in Manhattan. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah. So anyway, he's a celebrity, period. Way before he was president, people would line up to listen to what he has to say. Because by and large, what he has to say is like common sense. I mean, it is common sense. A friend of mine by the name, a business associate friend, he invested in real estate projects that I had things to do with. One real big shopping center in Sarasota. Anyway, he tried to hire me to run one of his major real estate efforts in Dade and Broward County years ago, building thousands of houses. He would have, made me a very wealthy person. Asa B, like ABC, Asa B. Groves, Groves. Asa B. Groves. We sat at a table at Size Rivergate. It was a table for 8, big round table for 8, in the middle of the restaurant. It was, I think there were like 2 or 3 of them in the whole restaurant. Size Rivergate. Right over the bridge on Prickle Avenue. Look to the west, right as you go over the bridge from the city center of Miami, going, south on Prickle Avenue. Well, you go over a bridge, so the Prickle River or something underneath could pass by. Anyway, you go over the bridge, you make a right turn immediately as you're coming over the bridge, and you park in there, valet park. You walk up into the restaurant, and you can see buildings and water and cars moving, and it's just an exciting downtown. It was a place that many of the financial people would go every day, or every other day, whatever. Anyway, so we had an arranged meeting, where Dick Yates, Bill Duncan, myself, Asa B. Groves, and several other people, filling a table of 6, 7, or 8. So we're yakking around and talking it up and this and that, and Asa's doing all kinds of things, and Dick is financing all kinds of stuff, and Jimmy's working at the Barnett Bank of Miami. At that instant, I was at the Barnett Bank of Miami. Yeah. And Asa looks at me and he says, common sense ain't very common. He says, but Jimmy, you got it. You have got a unique sense of common sense. And common sense is not very common these days. Or any days, actually. Come on, work for me. I'll make you in charge of, you'll build 10 or 20,000 homes in Dade and Broward County. And after a couple of years of that, you'll be tired out, but you'll be living high off the hog, as they used to say. Living high off the hog. Other people will trim the hog as you sit at a comfortable table having brunch with your pork served to you. Yep, common sense ain't very common. That was his favorite expression. Anyway, so I enjoyed that luncheon. I was very flattered, that Asa was trying to corral me into his, unique group of people. Charles Wilson was one of the other people at that lunch. Yes, Charlie Wilson. No relation to Jimmy Wilson. Just a couple of Wilsons. And Asa had a very high regard for Charles Wilson. Yeah. Anything he did. Charles was like his financial guy. So Asa came up with the big ideas, and Charlie figured out how to make it happen, financially, with Asa's, healthy net worth, cash, liquidity. They're capable of causing finance just by saying, I need 10 million to do X, Charlie would put the package together and 10 million would go through the loan committees and he'd be on for his next development. Yeah. Lived in Coral Gables. Coral Gables was the bee's knees of, South Florida, Miami-Dade County. Anybody lived in Coral Gables. Yeah. There are probably 2,000 residences in the Coral Gables district that I'm thinking of. Beautiful homes, oh my God. Today they're $15 to $30 million places. Back when I was having lunch with Asa Groves, that would be 1976. How about that? You know why I know that? Because in May of 1975 is May 15th, I believe, or May 16th, one of those 2 days, Barnett Bank of Miami hired Jimmy to work in their real estate department. I worked there for exactly 1 year, May of 75 to May of 76. And a client of Barnett Bank of Miami introduced me to Robert H. Curtis. Bob Curtis. I've always heard of Bob Curtis, and Jim Lindgren, met with me at Barnett Bank of Miami, and he went through a real estate project. There's like 180 units, phase one of, fourplex townhouse project on the south side of Glades Road as you pass underneath the turnpike. Just a little further, here, Groves. Wait a minute. Something Villas. You can see the project. You just look south as you're traveling west on Glades Road, right after you pass under the turnpike. Then you pass through a little shopping center on both sides of the road, but you continue to glance southward with your eyes, and you'll see the entrance to this. It's a gated community of fourplexes. Anyway, it was a magnificent package. We went through it page by page, like legal-sized papers, beautiful graphics and presentations, photographs, aerial photographs, surveys, all that. It was, a totally complete package. It went into the financials, and then in a separate envelope, he'd hand me his signed and dated personal financial statement. That was not bound in the package. That was handed to me in a separate envelope. So what that means is, if the meeting went well, in his view, then he left you with the package. If the meeting went very well, like he wanted you to do the financing, he would leave the package with you, and at the end of the meeting, personally hand you his financial statement in a sealed envelope. Yep. If the meeting didn't go well, a financial statement would stay in his pocket, and he would take the package with him as he walked out the door. No sense in leaving, the package behind. I don't believe in collecting souvenirs as a banker. You only take packages that you're going to do. That was my little internal rule. When you received a package, I was a banker most of my working life, and did all kinds of things, and climbed and pursued up the line, and eventually became, vice chairman of a bank and a bank holding company. And I was president of one, and I was CEO of another. And Phil Motter, my partner, was who actually started the company. I was employee number one, so to speak. Phil being the charter member, he's employee zero, so to speak. And I was his first employee that he hired. And I was introduced, I've heard of Phil, of course, both in Boca Raton. And he was president of another bank at the time. He was leaving the bank to start this new venture where he was going to raise capital and run a bank and make sure that he would have a branch in Boca Raton. That was his goal. So we were raising money together, which is not actually my cup of tea. I'm like a mechanic. I know how to run the bank. But, since I've only been in the community at the time that he started this venture, which was, 97, late 90s, something like that. I came over from Tampa. I had 10 years in Tampa, so we moved over to Boca Raton. And I only been in Boca Raton for 2 or 3 years, so, I didn't have a stable of what I would call check writers, people that could write $1 million check. You need a few of those to do a bank, to create a, you've heard of bank holding companies, like we were Southern Security Bancorp. You couldn't have a K in there because unless you actually owned a bank, the holding company couldn't be a bank corp, BANKCORP, because you don't have a bank. And you don't have a bank until you get regulatory approval. So you have to be BANCCORP. Bank Corp. No K's. But once you get approval to buy a bank, which you have a contract for, or what we call a definitive agreement, as soon as you take title to the controlling shares in the bank that you are trying to acquire, controlling shares of, once that happens, then, now you can call yourself a bank corp. It's just one of those little things that the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta gets really cranky about. If you call yourself a bank corp and you don't actually have controlling interest of any kind of a bank. Anyway, so we were a bank corp for, we're going on to about 6 or 7 months. So so Phil and I are having a little private meeting with ourselves because it was just a two-man shop at that moment, working in the downstairs of a downstairs, upstairs, kind of an office thing. That Tim Butler, the famous Butler people of Deerfield Beach. Yeah, the Butler family. So Tim Butler owned this building, and he said, and he was interested in doing a bank deal, which means he was going to be a check writer with us. So we negotiated, he gave us a good lease deal. Put it that way. Negotiated is really not the right word because, we didn't argue back and forth. He said, how about this? And we said, yes. How about that for a negotiation? Yep. So I'm just going fast through some of the key moments. Anyway, so after about 80 or 90 days, Tim Butler wrote the first check, which we deposited in our bank corp, holding company, bank account, check account. Yeah. Fill out the checkbook. Anyway, so we got that. It was a $100,000 check. We damn near kissed the check as it came in the door. I remember Tim Butler. He had his office upstairs. We were on the ground floor. We had like half of the ground floor, something like that. We had 2 desks, a file cabinet, 2 phones, two metal side chairs. That was our executive suite. Yeah, we're talking about, 4 mica tables. Yes, sir. So here's the furniture I think Tim Butler already had in the office. So we just used it, cleaned it up. Anyway, so, the raising the money was a little slower than what Phil led me to believe would happen. He said, oh yeah, I'm going to bring in 6-7 million, in about 90 days. And then we'll go on and create a bank charter and all this stuff. And I said, hey, good. Yeah, great. Yeah. I'm the mechanic, right? So he's in charge of doing that, and I'm in charge of, actually running the bank and getting the people hired and, managing all that stuff. Phil would, he would end up being president of the bank, and I would be CEO of the bank, chief executive officer. But he'd be the president. Because everybody locally, the president, he's the guy that runs the bank. So I said, you should be president because, people don't even know what the hell CEO means. So we'll just split the title. You take one, I'll take the other. We'll switch the other way if you prefer. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The 2 of us are going to run the bank. That's clear. And, we have 30% of the stock in the company, which is a nice chunk to start off with. Because every time you sell stock, they buy stock, right? The check writers, and then you get diluted because if you got Bill and I started off with 34% of the bank, 17% each, right down to the share. He said, Jimmy, I got a lot more than I bargained for. You're like super outstanding. So instead of me having a little more shares than you, I'm going to give you some of my shares. You tell me how many I have to give so that when the giving is done, we have the exact same number of shares to the share. I don't want to be a half share more than you. We should be equal partners. And I said, Phil, how nice. It was nice. I mean, God, man, it was like 200,000 or 300,000 shares that changed hands so that we would have the same share count. So we had 17% each, round numbers. So yeah, 34% total. But every time an investor came in and wrote a check, and we needed that capital to run a bank or buy a bank, you get diluted. So 17% became 16.5%, 16.25%. So, as you hand out shares, then they have shares and you have shares. So it all has to add up to 100%, right? So we started out with, X number of shares, and we owned 34% of the total number of shares. And the rest of the shares are in the treasury of the company, but not issued to other third parties. So when the other third parties invest in your company, then they end up getting treasury shares, and then that kind of like adds up to, then they have a percent of ownership. So you get diluted, bottom line, and you keep getting diluted. So we got diluted to the point where, we had about 30% each. So we each had to give up, so we ended up at 15% and 15%, or 14.5%, whatever, it was something like that. And all the other investors owned all the rest of the stock, eventually. So they had, if we had 30%, they had 70%. That was split up, among 25 people, let's say. Some were big check writers. Some, friends in the neighborhood were $30,000 investors, and other investors were $500,000 to, I think the Butler family had a couple million invested. They were our largest shareholder family, if you will, because the mother invested, the son invested, back and forth. The Butler estate, they invested, foundation or whatever. So, the Tim Butler, the mother, and the family fund, I think those are the big three, the largest investors we had in the bank. And of course, we had to get them approved. Once you get over, 5 or 10%, there are disclosure requirements with the SEC and the Federal Reserve. So, of course, we did that. We had what is known as competent counsel to make sure we followed all the rules and requirements. We hired Jerry Dolan, Gerri, I believe, Jerry Dolan, who was a regulatory affairs consultant from Deloitte & Touche, and she was the former director of banking for the state of Florida. She was in that job for 4 years. It was, I think, kind of an elected position. And then she made herself available to Deloitte & Touche. So she was the regulatory affairs consultant, in the world of banking for the Deloitte & Touche, bunch of financial companies that they did business with. So of any of the financial statements that they worked on, were part of their corral of customers, and they needed regulatory affairs consultation. Jerry Dolan was on staff at Deloitte & Touche to service that need. Well, Jimmy and Phil actually knew her from his work with another bank. I did not know her. He introduced me to her, and we became very good. We were very close. We talked to each other every day, maybe 4 days a week, or 5 days out of 6. It was over the weekend. We were constantly talking about things and making strategy and dealing with regulatory affairs issues as we were, zeroing in on a particular bank. Anyway, the raising of the money was a little slower than what Phil had projected. Not being critical, just factual. So I said, Phil, I'm going to make your job easier. Right now you're selling. We're going to get a bank, or we're going to do a bank, or we're going to get a charter, or whatever. It's like in the vapors. I said, I'm going to find a bank that we're going to buy. I'm going to put it under a definitive agreement, under contract. I'm going to take a picture from the driveway of the bank so that there's a nice, beautiful picture of the bank in a 2 or 3 story building or whatever. It's going to be a nice color. I will do the photography. I will do the post-image editing. And I'm going to give you 8.5 by 11 pages, which we will bind as the cover of the book. And then when you hand a potential investor a package, that bank will be the cover of the presentation book. And you say, this is the bank we are acquiring. And in that package will be, biographies, biographies of Phil, then followed by biography, resume, so to speak, of Jim, what the proposal is in writing, what the proposal is in statistics, a copy of the definitive agreement with the bank, and the financial statement of the bank, historical, so forth. Like 2 or 3 years of financial history of the bank, 7 years, whatever. And that'll be your package. Short and sweet. We're buying this bank. Your capital will be used to capitalize the bank. And he started raising money like crazy. Yeah, very, very. We tracked who he was meeting with, who Phil was meeting with, who I'd be meeting with. He did 70% of the money raise. I did about 30% of the money raise. I was, not really good at doing that, so I did the best I could. And we raised about $8 million, and he raised about $6 million of that, and I raised about $2 million of it. 6 and 2 is 8. That's about the numbers. Anyway, we acquired a bank. We met with the regulatory affairs people of the state of Florida. The director of banking, and who I knew actually. That's another story. And can you imagine, I lived in Coral Springs, and I had a friend that was 2 doors down from me on a cul-de-sac in Coral Springs. And Snyder, Paul B like boy, Paul Baynard Snyder, the third or something like that. Really, he played for Ole Miss. He was a quarterback, I believe. Football on the mantelpiece. He was a big guy, big. Oh, yeah. He'd put his arm around me and rustle me around. These guys like to, rub on each other, these football players. Paul, get away from me. So, every week or every other week, I'd be down at his house or he'd be at our house, watching football and yucking it up and, grilling hot dogs and hamburgers and having beers and all this stuff, as 28-year-old, 29-year-old people, right? We're, relatively young, right? Compared to now, because now we're 103 and getting around without a cane, but we're moving around. Anyway, so when you're in your 20s, you're grilling hamburgers and drinking beers and yucking it up, having a good time, jumping in and out of the pool. We as 20-year-olds, we lived in a very nice neighborhood. Didn't have any of the stuff you hear about today. No. Had no problem having your kids play in the street. No, they played out in the street, on the sidewalk and sat around in circles and drew pictures. And, the kids were real real sane and talented. And anyway, so I'm yucking it up with Paul Snyder. What the heck? That's what we did. He worked for a toy company, and they had these presentation of toys to department stores or all kinds of different stores that bought toys. So he was in the toy business. He was a big freaking football player, and he's selling dolls, whatever. So he'd have a presentation, and when he was done, he'd put all the stuff up in the attic, and he'd keep stuffing up in the attic. So one Christmas time, I'm up in his attic, helping him get the Christmas lights down or something. You don't spend a lot of time in the attic because they're hot, in Florida. The attic is like 120 degrees, so you don't want to stay there very long. So you get your box and get the hell out. Anyway, so I look around. He's going to hand me a box. I'm on a ladder. And he's in the attic, and I'm like, got my head in the attic. But I'm on a ladder, so he comes up with this box, and he says, "Hey, Jimmy, get this box." So I take that box, and I bring it down. He said, "Come on back. I got one more box." So then he hands me another box, and I take it down the ladder. I said, "Paul, you got toys in the attic," which was an expression you'd use if your buddy is not real bright. You got toys in the attic instead of brains. It was just a funny thing. Anyway, so Paul was a really good friend. We spent a lot of weekends together, which you would do. He works all week. I work all week. Wives work all week. And then we decide where we're going to cook hamburgers. We went around the neighborhood. Everyone took a turn. And someone brings a dish. Someone, the other guy brings the hot dogs. Someone brings the hamburgers, the buns, the beers, the ice, whatever. And all of a sudden, you got a little party going on for a couple of 3 hours on a Saturday or Sunday. So anyway, I spent a couple of years yucking it up with Paul Snyder. And, he would every once in a while, when we would have our little neighborhood parties, he'd invite in, some people he knew from other, from like when he went to school. So some guy was visiting down in South Florida, and he brought him over, and he's sitting on the couch drinking beers and all this kind of stuff. And so, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a bank examiner. I look at the financial statements of banks that are being audited and all that kind of stuff. I said, oh, that's probably pretty interesting work. At the time, what was I doing? I was a lender, not Barnett Bank. Oh, I was a real estate mortgage. I was a mortgage broker. I worked with Dick Yates. So I took the mortgage broker test, which was a bear. You really had to study for it. So I passed that. And I was a mortgage broker. Making money, schlepping loans, introducing clients to banks and getting consulting fees, that kind of thing. So you can carve out a living if you work hard at it. I'd rather work in the bank. I was not working in the bank at the time. Anyway, so Terry Straub was the name of the fellow, I believe. Terry with a T, Straub. S-T-R-A-U-B. So guess what? 10 years later, I'm working for the Boca Bank, right? I'm a senior officer of Boca Bank. And Phil Motter hires me, out of Boca Bank to join with him in this company that was going to buy or operate a bank. Remember, we're raising money. We have 30% between the two of us ownership. And so I finally took the picture of a bank, put it on the front cover of our brochure or a financial proposal kind of a thing. It's kind of a fundraising package, which you would deliver personally one by one. You wouldn't hand them out, in some kind of a big meeting. No. You would have luncheons or dinners with check writers and talk about the proposal. You'd bring two, one for them to read and one for you to page through. You'd go through it with them. Anyway, so now we're going for regulatory approval through the state of Florida. And I'm speaking with Jerry Dolan, and we're about ready to go to Tallahassee to meet with the director of banking of the state of Florida. I said, Jerry, so you used to be the head of banking for the state of Florida, right? She said, oh yeah, you're in contact with those people all the time? Absolutely. And matter of fact, you set this appointment that we're going to have next week. She said, yes. I said, so who's the director of banking? She says, oh yeah, he's been with the state of Florida examination team for like 18 years or so or something like that. Terry Straub. Terry Straub? He looks like X? Yeah. I said, I actually know Terry Straub. We had, you might introduce himself to me without me there. Get him on a phone and tell him that Jim Wilson that you're dealing with was the guy that used to be at Paul Snyder's house having, hot dogs and hamburgers and drinking beers and watching football. It turns out that Paul Snyder and Terry Straub went to Ole Miss together. They were schoolmates. Terry not being a football guy, he was, a business major or something like that. But I ended up in the state of Florida being an examiner and went up the line over a period of years and became the director of banking for the state of Florida. And now I'm appearing before him, his honor. I said, oh my God, that's like credit. So we had a meeting like we didn't know each other. It wasn't surreptitious, but we didn't disclose all our personal, grillings out together, in the backyard of Paul Snyder's house. But we had an intermission for the meeting. So Terry got up and moved quickly to go to the men's room. Well, I said, Phil, I'll be right back. So I dart out of the conference room. And so I'm standing next to him while we're relieving ourselves. And I said, Terry, how the hell you doing? I said, I'm kind of like acting stealth, which is certainly not lay on this committee, our personal. But it's really good seeing you again. I hope you and your wife are doing well. Yeah, so that's. He said, "Yeah, we're good. It is good seeing you. It's amazing how we come back together." Yeah, I said we got a good proposal. You'll check us out. We're part of the good people, and we have Jerry Dolan guiding us through the, all the steps and the next meetings with the Federal Reserve. Then we'll probably have a meeting with you and the Federal Reserve. So it's a long process, and we look forward to being successful with that. So that was it, and we did get approved. And we did go to the Federal Reserve, and then we met with Marion Rivers, who was the head of the Federal Reserve, the unit that dealt with like Florida and Georgia or something. The Federal Reserve District managed, I think, 4 or 5 states, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. So we flew into Atlanta and met with, the Federal Reserve people, Marion Rivers and his superior officer, fellow, which is going to take me a little head scratching to remember his name. But we did good. Got approved. You never knew whether you were going to be approved or not when you left the meeting. You just, that's why we had Jerry Dolan there. So right after the meeting, she'd go run back, as a former director of banking. She, of course, all knew the very senior people at the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. So she'd run back after our meeting and have a private little tete-a-tetes with the people that were in our meeting. And so what do you think? Isn't that package impressive? So she would, back sell it in the room, and she'd get feedback from them. And we just need a couple of things and we can wrap this up, So then she'd meet back with us as we're flying back to South Florida. And we'd be chatting in the airplane on how the meeting went. And of course, she huddled with the folks and she said, you guys will be fine. The meeting went well. You had a couple of hitches and you'll fix it. And, so one of the proposed directors forgot to sign his disclosure form. His stuff we just had to repair in our package. So make sure you get Director X. He has to sign and date his personal financial statement. He forgot to do it. And, so there's 2 or 3 cursory items like that need to be addressed. And these, the Federal Reserve, they're like bank examiners also. They do a lot of other things. But they're a Cadillac organization. Really top-notch people. So when they go through your package, they have a room full of people that, we had a conference room that sat, I'm going to say 16 or 18 people. And then there was a whole row of chairs against, the long wall of the conference room. And they were all filled up with staff assistants of the Federal Reserve. So you had the senior people sit around the conference table with us. And then you had 10 chairs of people that sat there with yellow pads and, their eyeglasses, and nice young ladies and nice young men, working their way up through the Federal Reserve chain of command. And they're listening attentively and making notes as you're speaking. So you really have to speak very carefully because you got, there's Phil and Jim and Jerry Dolan. That's who flew up to Atlanta. And you got a table of 18, so you got 15 other senior people at the Federal Reserve of Atlanta. And they're all suited up and, they're the cream of the crop, top people in the whole Federal Reserve System in one of the most important Fed districts in the Federal Reserve System. Of course, the Federal Reserve District number 1, which is Manhattan, that was the big one. That was the real super Cadillac bunch. And then you had Federal Reserve District 1 and 2, I'd say. Number 2 was New York. I think 1 is Massachusetts or something. But you always see 2 on $1 bills because that's New York District. Or 2 on the currency. It could be dollar bills, 10, hundreds, 50s, whatever. But another one of the major Federal Reserve districts was number 6, which is Atlanta, because you had, all this developing states of Florida, with incredible population growth and people moving in there from all over. Tampa, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Jacksonville. All major, Jacksonville was a major port in unbelievable imports, exports. Well, Federal Reserve gets involved with all that. Not only because there's billions and trillions of dollars going back and forth and import, export. All that has to be accounted for and make sure it fits within, the Fed policy outlined by the President of the United States or whatever. And then you got Tampa. You know, you got a SAC command base there. You know, you've got a major university. It's a very exciting community. We lived in Tampa 10 years. It was absolutely spectacular. And we were the perfect age group when we were there. We were right smack in the middle of the demographics on the age group. And then 10 years later, we moved to Boca Raton, back to South Florida, where we started. It's like a big loop around the state. We missed Orlando and Jacksonville, but we did almost everything else. Yes, sir, Bob. So, anyway, that's we did well with the bank holding company. Met some unbelievably good people along the way. And then a big bank bought us, and I went out first. I don't know. I wasn't sure whether there was room for Phil and Jim, so I figured, you know what, Phil, I'm the younger guy. I'll go out, so we're not competing with each other on who stays and who goes, because the company won't keep both of us, the merged company. And there's only so much chopping you can do with a salary. They're not going to cut our salaries and keep us there. They're just going to tell you to hit the road. So one stays and one goes. So I'll go. It's no problem. So I stepped out first. Sometimes the first money is the best money. So I did well. 7-digit well. So that's good for a young guy. What the hell? I'd have rather had it so that we stayed longer. But the state of Florida introduced us to a big banking group that wanted to do exactly what we did 6 years later, So in the banking world, it's always the big fish eats the smaller fish. So you keep on eating fish. So your size keeps growing, So during that fish eating, I stepped out. That's okay. I shouldn't have. I should have stayed. Only because the group that was in Coral Gables, Florida, that actually architectured this acquisition, they did the same thing that I did. There was just a different group of different people. And it, I got out more to protect Phil Motter. Really, honestly. And I figured, but what they had offered is, Phil will stay up with the bank up in, Broward County, and Jim, you'll come down and work with me, in the holding company level, so to speak, in Coral Gables. Let Phil be involved with the running of the bank, and you can be involved with, managing the holding company with us down here in Coral Gables. I should, that was an outstanding invitation, and I didn't do it, and I shame myself for not taking advantage of that, because as it turns out, the people were really super good. They were super good. I worked with them for a while, but I was kind of like, I turned in my, I turned in my gun and my badge, so I was just finishing up details. I wasn't in the plan to stay, because I told everybody I was going to go. So, and that was fine, They tried a little bit to keep me. And I kind of said, it's time for me to go. I'll go. You guys can deal with this without me. So that's how that worked out. So that's the beginning and the end to me creating that bank holding company thing, which was really quite exciting. Met a lot of people along the way, and yeah, there was a gentleman that was in Miami that I really liked being around. He was really a smart cookie, and I've been told that I can hold my own pretty good too. And his name was what do you call it? God, that name just came and went. Oh, yeah, here it is. Hal Cannell. Connell. Hal, Hal. Hal Cannell. He is, I think he's still with us. Alive, that is. So he's a South Florida guy, Hal. And he was very creative. He was like in the security and exchange business. He had a securities business, Canal Partners or so, I forget the exact name of his business. So he was in the security side, like stocks and security instruments. We were actually on the banking, So the two companies, were complementary but different. So he was on the security side and put together all kinds of deals, where people exchanged shares and merged and all that kind of stuff. So he was an M&A guy, mergers and acquisitions. So I became an M&A guy, M&A, merger and acquisition, through the creating of Southern Security Bank. That was an M&A deal I did essentially by myself. I mean, I had a lot of help, but, and then when I was at Royal Trust Bank, I worked with, I was put on the M&A team, right, 1979. Yeah. That was actually before. So I had M&A experience because I was on the M&A team, the mergers and acquisition team. There were 6 of us, 6 different disciplines. You had a commercial loan guy, you had a real estate guy, which was me. You had a financial guy, you had an accountant type guy, you had a treasury management type person, ladies. And the 6 of us traveled all over the state of Florida, buying banks for the Royal Trust Holding Company, this Canadian group that was allowed to own a bank. I think it was the only foreign entity allowed to own a bank. They came in through some, little quirk in the law that permitted them to take control of a bank in Coral Gables, Florida, which I ended up working for. Go figure, right? So that's how I got my M&A experience. So when I bought this bank for Phil Motter, I drew out of that experience. I was very comfortable floating around those venues. I mean, I could meet with the board of directors and create an opportunity, a sale or a purchase. So I could stand in front of 80 or 100 people, in a stage setting where you have a large conference room, I guess you say, where you have an elevated platform. And you stand or sit with easels with financial charts and stuff. I always made sure I had show and tell with me. So I had a bag of these big, 3 foot by 2 foot. I had a big 3 foot by 2 foot photograph of the building. Remember, you put the picture of the building on the front of the package. Well, I had the picture of that building right there I'd turn it up so you had the big building showing. while I'm giving my speech. I used to write out, what I was going to talk about, kind of like on a yellow pad with talking points. Had no teleprompters. We didn't script write and just read off a prompter. I gave the speech right out of my head. I might look down at the yellow pad just to make sure I hit all the bullet points. You don't want to forget anything. So, and I remember doing 4 or 5 settings with 60, 50, 60 people, 40, 50, 60 people, invited people that we didn't know. Some we knew, most we didn't. And, Tom Barone, who was a senior executive with the 10th largest bank in the country, he came down and invested in our bank holding company. How about that? Yeah, we were out to dinner one night. He wrote a check. He had a check. He pulled it out of his wallet and opened it up. He said, "Jimmy, we'd like to buy a piece of your bank." He wrote a check right out of his personal checkbook. Tom Barone with his personal address on there, just, a little check like you write for you're paying your electric bill or something. He took it out of his wallet and wrote it out when we were finishing up dinner. And he put a dollar amount on there and he signed it. He said, what's the name of your company? Southern Security Bank with a C, Bancorp. Southern Security Bank of Hollywood or something. Yeah. Because the bank actually was in Hollywood, so I think that's what we said. So he wrote out a check right at the dinner table where we had dinner. He flew into town to meet with us, and he told me at dinner, he says, he says, Phil Motter is the sizzle, and Jimmy, you're the steak. That was, he says, very impressive between the two of you. Because, you need to have a guy that does the sizzle. But you need to have a guy that's the steak, the meat and potatoes of the deal. And you obviously are the one that is architecturing the transaction. I said, yep, that's what I do. And Phil, he's the handshaker. He knows everybody. He could be mayor of Boca Raton. He walks in a room, everybody knows Phil Motter. He dragged me along and introduced me to people, that I never heard of in the town. Yeah, he was a good guy. We were like glued together at the hip. It was the Jim and Phil show, or the Phil and Jim show. Yeah. But he was the sizzle and Jimmy was the steak. That's how Tom Barone mentioned it in jest. He said it was an outstanding presentation. And I'd like to own a piece of this thing. Wrote a check right there at dinner. How about that? Whew. Gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Yeah. I mean, when you can get he was a senior officer, 25-year guy, that's a guess, at the 10th largest bank in the United States, headquartered in the state of New York. That's as much of a hint as you're going to get today. I don't want to use his name because I haven't gotten his permission to use his name. Because he wrote a personal check, And there were only very few people that knew the shareholder list with the names. You always get the shareholder count, but there are only a very few people that actually see the shareholder list with their names and their investment and yada yada. That's one of the most private. That's like, when you dress up. That's the private parts of a company. No one gets to see the private parts except the husband or the wife. Yeah, the shareholder list. That is deep in the vault of the financial records of any company, not just banking, but for sure for banking. Oh my God, yeah, shareholder list is woo. You only get to see the totals. Very few people get to see the who and how much. Yeah, I was one of those because that's what we did. So exciting. I wish for anybody listening to what I'm saying that they or their children, could have some of the exciting experiences that I enjoyed. Yeah. But one of the most exciting is celebrated today. The meeting and having a 45-year relationship with Marilyn. Oh my. That is very overwhelming that she was willing to share, most of her life with me. And wow. And here we are 45 years later. We met February 22nd of 1980, a Friday, about 8 p.m. And that anniversary comes up next week. The anniversary of the first time we talked personally together. February 22nd, 1980, at the Sheraton Rivergate Hotel. Yeah, in the Daphne Lounge, I think. All these names are still there. The place is still there. The Daphne Lounge is still there. We're not there. Yeah, Daphne Lounge. We were at I was part of a training seminar, and Marilyn was one of the 40 participants that were invited to attend this week-long session at the Sheraton Rivergate Hotel. They flew people in from all over the state. World Trust did. And me and 7 other people were part of the people that facilitated this meeting, and Marilyn and the 39 others were people that were selected by their managers as to they would be running the company, 10 years from now or sooner. So the World Trust people wanted those 40 people to have the uplifting experience of these 8 facilitating people. And I was proud to be one of those, although I had to be talked into doing it. Just finished up a sad divorce, I'll just say it. She's not with us any longer, but it was the most incidental thing that you could possibly imagine. I'm at a parent-teachers meeting, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm waiting for my parent-teacher thing. My daughter and son were going to Boca Raton Academy, I think. Yeah. So I'm in the 3rd grade class, at my daughter's class. It was the first place I was supposed to be. And so I'm sitting around there, there's no one in the room except for me. I'm looking around, make sure I'm in the right room, Anyway, I'm sitting there. And of course, I'm 20 minutes early because my wife was a teacher at the Boca Raton Academy, teaching biology, I think, yeah. I'm in the banking business. And so I just open up a science book. It's like a biology book for 3rd graders. And, I'm going through the pages and looking at all these things that I learned, decades ago. and I come across a note. Someone passed a note between each other. I don't know whose desk I was sitting at. I just sat in the middle of the room, right? There's like 35, 40 desks, you have a table with an arm that comes up around the right side of you. There's a desk made for right-handers. So your arm could rest on the armrest and come across in the surface, right? And the thing lifts up and you can, store books and stuff. That's what I did. I opened up the thing and there was a biology book in there, or a science book. So I paged through it, waiting for someone to show up at this thing. And I opened, and there was a little message in there written from one girl to another, right? So I said, "Oh, what the hell? Let's read the message." I don't know who Julie is, or Christine or whatever. I forgot who it was written between, but anyway, there's two girls writing notes between each other, and the note said, "Did you see Mrs. Wilson hugging and kissing the history teacher, Mr. whatever his name was?" So I'm reading this thing and I go, "Holy crap. It's my wife." She's hugging the history teacher in the teacher lounge. Did you see that, Christina? No, and I'm opening up, how random is that? That's how I learned that my former wife, the mother of at least two of my children that I know of, and she was sleeping with the history teacher. She told me she was going to FAU taking classes, and she wasn't, apparently. Ugh. So that was the end of that. And in January, that was a divorce time. And in February, I had my boss signed me up for being with the chairman of the bank. Said, "Oh yeah, Jimmy would be great." And he didn't ask me first, and no one in the company knew what I was going through. It was private, so I didn't feel like talking about it. Anyway, but when I was, installed in this facilitation role, which is fine. I actually ended up doing it, but Bob Curtis had to, hit me over the head twice. I said, "Bob, do I really have to do this?" He says, "Jimmy, you got to do it." I told Jerry, the chairman of the bank, that you would do it. I can't go back to him now and say that you're not going to do it. I said, "Okay, I'll do it. Say another word, I'm done. I'll be there. I'll make you proud." So I told him why I was, reluctant, and he was sympathetic. He didn't realize I was going. He said, "I'd still have to do it. You need to do it. You need to break you need to get out of here for a week and go do this. You'll be good at it. These are the 40 best people we have in the company. And you and the 7 others that have been picked to facilitate, this seminar for senior people. The worldliness that you all have will be wonderful experience for these people that are going to run the bank 10 years from now or less." So that was it. I did it. And at the end of the seminar, the story is swinging all the way around to this exciting day of Valentine's Day. I sent my Marilyn, my wife, 12 deep red, a dozen red roses, of course. That's the most romantic thing you can do, is just a bouquet of a dozen deep red roses to memorialize, how well you think of each other. And that's what I did. And there you go. There's a picture of one of the roses. Look how beautiful that is. Wow. Yep. That's it. There can't be anything left up on the picture. Yeah, taken at 9:14 p.m. Yep. Taken with ultra-wide angle lens from the iPhone 16 Pro Max. We get the anyway, so that's very exciting. I had them delivered to her on Thursday to avoid the June rush, because Friday everyone gets the roses delivered, right? Or everyone that cares to, and because of that, the flower people, they get overwhelmed because that one day is like, a bazillion deliveries. And some are earlier, some in the middle, and some are late. Some are very late. Some never get delivered. But if you have them delivered on Thursday, that's not the big rush day. And that way she can enjoy them for, I want them delivered midday. That could be anywhere after 10:30 or before 3. I told my flower man, Hilton, Hilton, he owns the shop. He called me because he calls his friends of the company. He says, of course, you're going to be delivering a beautiful dozen roses to Maryland. I said, yes. He confirmed the address and everything. And I said, can we do it on Thursday instead of Friday? He said, outstanding idea. That way you avoid the big rush. I said, yeah, because, 2 years ago we had an issue. They were delivered late and you were apologetic. I said, let's just go Thursday. It's safer. She'll be sure to get them, and so she did. And there's the unbelievable heart of that rose. Can you smell it? If we had smell-o-vision, this would be outstanding. It is outstanding. I'll give you a full picture view of that. That's the picture of the day. And you can see little fluids of rose juice coming out of the petals. I mean, that is really quite can you imagine? That's your iPhone Pro. Look at the center of that rose. I mean, you can almost crawl inside of it. Yep. I'm pinching and reverse pinching on the iPad that I have connected on this Simulcast. Wow. So she received that, and then I had a text message in which I attached this beautiful image of a glass heart, the color of the rose metal. How nice. That's a jewel. Yep, that's a jewel. So I hope you all are as lucky as I am. And today Maryland is at an event at FAU with some kind of a sold out event at FAU. It's in the new Schmidt family facility or something. A sold out crowd with the Chamber of Commerce people and all that. She knows all those folks. So there are 4 or 5 of her girlfriends that have a table of 8, I think, or something. And they'll be doing whatever they're doing at this Schmidt. She says it's a rather sizable crowd, sold out crowd. I said, yeah, I just don't know a facility that has a huge space. Anyway, so she said, yeah, it's supposed to be pretty big. Anyway, at the when they have events at Boca West, they can seat 1,000 people. They have some big rooms. That's a big room. I mean, you're talking 20,000. It's got to be 25,000 square foot room to seat 1,000 people. Tables of 8. You got all these tables of 8. So you have to have 100 tables of 8, right? 100 times 8 is 800. So you got to have 12, 14 tables of 8 to seat 1,000 people. Yeah. And that's, you have the space between the tables, and if it's a fashion show, they got to have a runway run down the middle, elevated runway, stage kind of a thing. Yeah. I don't know what the theme of what's going on at FAU. It's an all-day deal. She got there at 7:30 in the morning, so she could park and handicap. I think she had to do valet because I can see the car parked in the garage of FAU and it's not locked. That usually means it's valet because they don't know how to lock and unlock the car. They have the card. She gives them the card, like this thing right here, which you can see the black card embedded in this what do you call it, soft silicone case with a T on it for Tesla. But inside here is the key card that you get when you obtain a Tesla, and with that card you activate your phone, the app in the phone, the Tesla app in your phone, so that I'll show you that. Ooh, right here. There's the Tesla app. So you can see the car. It's shown in red, but it's actually black. It is locked. Okay, they locked the car. Let's see where it is. Yeah, the car is still in the garage. So they must have moved the car after when they valeted her. Then they parked it in the garage somewhere, and you can see it. Nose is pointing south in the garage. There's the stadium. It's the closest parking garage to the stadium. We photographed many football events in that stadium. Hundreds actually, and we'd always get parking pass for garage number 3, Roman numeral 3. And they had other places like this big strip right there, FAU Boulevard. Oh yeah, they'd line up all the cars up there. I said, no, I want to be in garage number 3, please. Yeah, that's too long a walk for my, at the time 70-year-old legs. Carrying 6-pound camera, which after doing a 4.5-hour football game, that 6-pound camera feels like it weighs 36 pounds. Anyway, we used the very finest digital equipment when we took pictures for FAU. And just so you know, since I'm on the topic, if you see on this, I'm shaking the board. You see I'm shaking the board right there? Well, you see city. I can't reverse pinch. On the very right side, you see city. That's like Citibank. Then you see YouTube. You push that and it takes you right to YouTube. These are icons on the face of my iPad, which I have connected to my system here that is transmitting this high definition digital TV show. It's not TV because it's digital. And it's being recorded. It's a simulcast. It's YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter X Live. And all 3 of those social networks are receiving this live broadcast. Well, I have 2,000 friends between those three social networks, and from time to time, people listen in. And anyway, so you see city. I'm going from right to left. Then you see YouTube. You know, the tube with an arrow thing that you touch. Then you see a logo thing with Wilson Picks. It says you can just look at that. Wilson Picks. See it right there with my logo, which is like a camera with a tripod. The next one is Tesla Company. We're gonna touch Wilson Picks icon. Bingo. Let's touch it. And where does it go? You look on the very top of that, and it says 416-1100.com. That's actually my phone number. Yes, it is. And see, health and wellness creates great images. It certainly does. And there's a picture that I'm proud of. It's a polo shot. And there's a ball that's elevated. It's not on the grass. And these two players, the Coca-Cola team, and I forget the other team. You can see Coca-Cola on his shirt. Whoops. And they're trying to get to that ball, and they click their sticks. And there's a name for that in the polo world, which I don't remember. Anyway, this is my front page for this site that's had over 26 million visitors. Can you believe it? I have a counter down at the bottom. We'll see. There's Marilyn with Jay Leno. How cool is that? I took that picture. I saw Jay Leno coming. I said, Marilyn, get over here next to me. We're going to trap him, see if we can get a picture of the two of you. And he was gracious enough to, I said, say hello to Marilyn. You don't mind if I take a picture? So he did. Hi, Marilyn. Yes, sir. That's him. And there's unique events. You see unique cars. You can see the Boca Hotel in the background there. You got to get that hotel in the background. That's the money shot. Yeah. And there's FAU events. Beautiful young teacher in Palm Beach County. They had look at that with a bunch of apples and in a bowl at each table. Yeah. So she was watching the event, and I was like about 15 feet in front of her, and she was like embarrassed that so I had a big camera with a big lens, and it was aimed right at her, and she was like smiling because I was embarrassing her. So she's got a little blush in her cheeks. Yeah. Yeah, I was a big professional photographer zooming in on this spectacularly attractive redheaded with freckles. I mean, what is that, like the perfect picture of someone that's, some 26-year-old that's teaching third grade English or something. And there's Marilyn. Yeah, that's the person that gave to me 45 years of our life. Yep. And I've taken concert pictures. There you can see a famous singer, guitar player, Shelton. Look at that. I gave him that picture that he could use on a CD-ROM cover if he wanted. I gave him about 10 spectacular pictures when I photographed that concert. I don't know if he ever used them, but I gave them to him. I got a recipe on my famous spaghetti sauce, which I'm about to make another batch. Oh, there's Daniel chasing a soccer ball. Look at that. Ball's in the air. These two kids are running after it. Yeah. Daniel's quite an athlete. As a 10-year-old. Yeah, there's the Lynn University Championship ring. was asked to take pictures of a sporting event. So if I touch that, it'll go to that Lynn University event. There it is. Yeah, basketball. These are all the athletic events. Yeah, 2009 NCAA Division II champions. Championship celebration, September 25. That's obviously a softball event. You can see the softball there. People signed. Baseball, excuse me. NCAA 2009 baseball championship. Printed right on the ball. There's softball. Yeah, there you go. Sliding in to the third base or whatever. Tennis. I took a lot of tennis pictures. Volleyball. We did some volleyball. Come down here. Oh, crap. The counters. Doesn't show the number. Well, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Let's try to restart that. See if I restart it, I get the page. Nope. I don't know why that's happening, but it is. Anyway, so it doesn't show the 26 million. There is a counter, and the number has been reserved. Look at that, copyright 1990, 2024. That's 35 years. Woo! Yeah, wow. 35 years of photography. I was one of the first to actually put them on a server and have them visible to the world. This was, the Associated Press, AP, did such things. Big media, global media thing. I had the server sitting in my kitchen. And I'd be taking pictures in London or something and sending them on the internet into my server in the kitchen. And where the hell we were living. I guess it was Floresta. Yeah. Right in that kitchen, I had a Sony server. And it housed all these photos that I was taking with the European tour. And look at that. I was just here a couple of days ago, and that counter showed. This is not showing. I don't know why. I'll have to communicate with the counter people and find out how come I can't see that. But I have all kinds of. There are 400,000 pictures spread out, sorted by these, 30. Let's see, the 36 is lifestyle imaging, civic and public events. I could just, with an iPad, I could just touch this guy on the nose. Bingo. There we go. And it goes to St. Patrick's Day. Look at this shot. Marilyn is. This picture right here is classic. There she is. She's standing on the crest on a bridge. You can see the grating in front of her feet. And she's standing there with she's got her garb on, for the Irish Day. You see her press pass. I guess I can't reverse pinch that one. Anyway, she knows I'm taking a picture of her. She got her hand on her hip and she's looking at me like, all right, what do you want me to do? I'm all ready. I got my lens extended, on her digital camera. Yeah. She was looking at me. She said, okay, well, now what do we do? We were waiting for this parade, which was spectacular. There's a still image, but there's actually there's a video thing in the middle. You can see the. One time I tripped, I almost broke my hip. I tripped over something. You hear that? Oh, I love it. And these guys flew in from listen to the drums. When we get by that big drum. Southwest Florida. The guns, the pipes, walking right next to these guys. Just bumping elbows. Trying to hold my camera steady. So good. That's great. I'm glad I could share that with you. Yep. That was spectacular. So, it's a couple of minutes. It's a couple minutes. Turn on my Epidemic Sound instrumental music, which is nice. So we did a little bagpipe in there. Of course, all this stuff is on, is hosted on 4 servers around the country for safety. A company called, I'll go all the way down to the bottom here, which is a lot of, there you go. You see on the very bottom right, it says copyright 2005 Smug Mug Inc. The package is copyrighted. The pictures are ours. But anyway, I pay them a fee. I was one of the first, not the first, but the first 100 or first 500 or early adopter of the Smug Mug. You basically, they host the pictures. You design your site. This is all self-done. All the way to the top. Yeah, this is all. So that's 2000 Patrick's Day Parade. Delray Beach, Florida, March 11th. Yeah. So that's, 2007. That's 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah. Hit home. Get back to the home page. Bingo, there you go. So, all this HTML, they call it HTML language. We wrote all these specialized HTML languages. The fact that it's 3 across, these are all categories. And if you touch, which I've touched them, right? Here's one with product photography. Let's do that one. So there's a cocktail. Bingo. I was hired by the Lola I called it the Lola Martini Lamb Chop Shoot. Yeah, look at that! Look at that picture. That's really quite amazing. I had specialized lighting tools that I brought with me to this event. There's the inside of the restaurant. There we go. There's one of the. That's the bar. They had a big arched bar, beautiful bar. I love that bar. Has this big arch. So, and you know, you're all facing, you know, the mirrors and the bottles and the lighting, and there's a TV up in that corner. And then everything. Whoops, I need to. Where are we? I need to get back. Sorry. Having a production. There we go. Just making sure I'm here. I'm here. Let me have a sip of tea. So that's the Lola Lounge, and there you go. And you can see the brickwork and the lighting is, you know, it cost them, I'm told, over $1 million in interior improvements to this restaurant location. Lola. There's a big conference room, kind of a dining room thing. You can see that was their menu. Love often, laugh a lot. That was their motto. Restaurant and ultra lounge. It really was, you know, so I took all these pictures. There's people just dining. I don't know who this lady is. But I had to take the picture. A spectacular picture. Black and white. There's the chef would bring out these specialty dishes that he came up with these specialty containers, you know, for a piece of fried lobster tail or something outrageous. Right, what have I done? Yeah, oh, there we go back. Let me reverse pinch that. This, so you can buy these pictures, or you can download them, or whatever. It says buy on the, see, in the green, buy. You press buy, and it gives you. Look at that. Here's the crab cake. Let me reverse pinch that. Look at that. Is that a picture or what? Woo! That was very carefully taken. You know, I stood in front of that for 15 or 20 minutes and took several shots to get that just right. With the wine glass and the wine bottle, I had the right exposure so that the focus was actually only on the crab cake. And even though these glass and the bottle was directly next to the plate, you don't get distracted with what's written on the bottle. You just know there's something on there. And someone that's very familiar with wines would probably know what exactly that wine is. Sauvignon Blanc. But I wanted the attention on the crab cake. And the lighting is kind of soft lighting. It's not harsh. Giving you a little talk. You know, the white plate is, you know, it's complicated lighting. You had all these different colors coming from all over the place. So I took a number of these shots. This is just glassware and the menu thing over on the right. Move things around a little bit. Put the menu in the middle. I like that better, probably. Me. This is a candlelight. That's what that is. I wonder why that's there. I should have moved it a little bit one way or the other. I don't like the candle in that spot. I should have moved it either in front of the menu or pushed it so that it's not blocking the menu. that's how it ended up. If I could do that shot over, I would have moved that candle to the left, just enough so the menu would be not covered with that candle thingy. Anyway, there's a plate that's, you know, on a stick. They have that seared tuna on a popsicle stick kind of thing. Kind of unique. And then he's got this fried lobster tail inside this wooden cup that had a stainless steel liner inside of it. I mean, all this stuff's really expensive to supply at a restaurant. They spent money like crazy. There's that wood thing, yeah. And there was a container inside that wood thing, so it could be, you know, washed properly and everything. Yeah. But those, I mean, that's expensive stuff. You know, that wood thing, that's probably cost them $20, $15 a piece. You know, you got to get hundreds of those and put them on the shelves to deal with your restaurant with that. Yeah. It's probably a 120-seat restaurant. Yep, there it is. Other shots with those seared tuna thingies. Yeah. Sesame crusted seared tuna. I took obviously a lot of pictures of this. There we go. So there's the stainless steel container. Whoops, I was talking about it. There we go. Yeah. So that, you know, they got the tuna on each side. I like this better. We don't need the stainless steel thing. They had short ones and they had tall ones. We just experimented with that. No, sir. I like this one better. We don't need any metal. It's just distracting. You know, you got all these nice soft tones and, you know, seared tuna and the sauteed veggies, and the metal is distracting. Yeah. That's got a fireplace in the background. That is the wine is totally out of focus. Yes, sir. I like that. That's a money shot right there. Whew. And then up in this upper right corner, you could have some writing on there, you know, and have that as a full, you know, as a quarter-page ads in a newspaper somewhere for advertising your place with your phone number. And there's the crab cake again. Now here's super out of focus in the front, but I got the wine label in focus. Just so you can see, I had a special lens on that you could get everything in focus. Like here's almost everything in focus. And you can see the Bourguignon wine there. Wilson. No, it's not me. Product of France, 2005. Georges. Never heard of it. That was one of their featured wines, apparently. They're taking pictures of the crab cakes. Very popular item. It's about $20 for the crab cake. There's a, you know, not a pizza, but a flatboard kind of a thing. That's a big pizza thing that they slide under the pizza oven to get that thing out of there. Yeah. There's an experimental photograph shooting the. There you go. Let's try D-A-L-P-H-I-N. Let's do a Google search. It's going to search my site. Let's see if it finds anything. I was just trying to get that counter to pop up. Still no signal on the counter. All right, well, what are you going to do? So, back to the top of this. But you can see there, there are just hundreds and hundreds of images all over these, all these different categories. Hit home. There we go. Now we're back to home. There it is. That shot's my featured shot, and this is a favorite picture right there. The TP with the that's in Milwaukee. Yeah. Yeah, you can see these categories. There's equestrian events. Look at that. Horses jumping over there. Yep. Palm Beach Atlantic University Sports. That guy's jumped right over the red guy. I mean, the athletic ability of some of these soccer players is. Here's my digital camera right there. The EOS 1D, EOS 1DS Mark III. Now I have an EOS R5, which is a mirrorless camera. So instead of having the single lens reflex where you have the mirror flapping back and forth, and you look through the lens with the 5D, and when you look through the viewfinder, you're looking at like a big screen that has 4 million pixel resolution screen. So you're looking at like a TV image. It's on a flat screen of what's coming through the lens. So you have a constant, even when you take the picture, there's always a view of your subject through the lens as the imager is recording a picture. Yep. Those are the new digital cameras that we have in our camera bags. Each shot has 45 million pixels. I think Marilyn's camera is a little higher speed sports version that has a 30 million pixel imager and takes more frames per second. So she can hold the shutter button down and it'll click out, at about 20 frames a second. I think my camera goes like 12 frames a second. So she's got a slightly smaller image. The imager is, full 35 millimeter across, but the pixel resolution is 30 million pixels, which is huge. Faster frame count, 30 frames per second. Mine is slightly slower frame rate, but more pixels. But you can see presidential elections. There's my press pass for the Observer newspaper. There's our press passes for, I had a network called CNN HD News. That's our press pass. You've seen that logo. There you go. That's Jimmy's, we made that up like 30 or 40 years ago. I had an artist, a graphic artist that put that together. I said, hey, make that. I said, I want a digital camera sitting on a tripod. And that's what an artist came up with. And I said, that's perfect. I had that on my stationery. I had stationery printed up with the middle of that on there. And then I added the stuff, Quality Digital Imaging, and then my web address on the bottom. That's, whoops, that's my logo. There's Jimmy at the, when I was like 17 or 18 at the West Point Academy Physical Fitness Finals. I was a finalist in President Kennedy's Robert F. Kennedy. Robert, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry, John F. Kennedy. Yeah, John F. Kennedy physical fitness thing in the 60s. That's me. Yep. Hey, West Point. Let's see where it is. Let's touch this one. Looking for West Point. How come it didn't go there? I went to this. These are all personal. You can see they're all Jimmy stuff and birthday parties. Look at that. So, you know, these are, if you touch that, then it's going to go to that event where there's, you know, another 100 pictures. Each one of these is like a button, you know, because you can see the captions underneath. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Going down memory lane. Can we touch that? There we go. There's Jimmy Wilson at the West Point Academy Physical Fitness Final. See, I'm doing pull-ups over here. That right there. Me with a serious face. You had to do 21 or 21 of those. All the way down, all the way up, 21. There are not many people that can do 21 of those. And then you go to different things. Then you do squat jumps here. And they had like 5 or 6 different things you had to do. And they had stopwatches, and I scored like second or third place. And I didn't do first place. Almost got first place. Anyway, we'll go home. Had enough of that. But that's why there's 400,000 pictures here. Round numbers. And there's Howard Schnellenberger. There's a series on him. He passed away. We took a lot of pictures of him. Here's political government events. That's interesting. Yep, that's Bush, George Bush. There you go. You can see we met him at an airplane. He flew into this is a Bush rally. Like 300 people there. It's not like a Trump rally where you got 40,000. I mean, really, there were like 200 or 300 people there. Yep. So he flew in with these celebrities, which will go unnamed. But he had, there's his brother behind him, and there's some other famous people in this crowd. Bush Cheney 2000 rally at West Palm Beach, November 5th. He's looking at his brother, his wife. Yeah. Anyway, in that background there are some fancy people. Some of you people probably know who they are. All right. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes. We gotta go. My son is taking me out to lunch today. I have to meet him downstairs at 11:30, and it's 11. You can see right there. It's 11:21. So, and this is connected to the National Bureau of Standards. 11:21, and there you can see right there. So, and we are done with memory lane. I have to I have to put my closing photograph, which is always this one right here. There we go. And I have to make that all by itself. That's the tag. I have that in the front and the end of all our recordings. And this 2-hour and 11-minute session is going to end right now. And I hope you have a great day. Happy Valentine's Day to all you beautiful ladies out there and gentlemen. Honor your relationships today. And with that, we'll send you a heart. Have a great day. Bye-bye.